Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you how I put together this granny square Christmas stocking. So you're going to start out with making your slip knot, and this is just an easy little way I learned to make it, but you can make it any way that you do. You're going to chain 4 and then slip stitch into that very first chain. Now we're going to be working in this little circle that made, so you want to go right there in the middle. And you could start with a chain 3, but I like to do a stacked double crochet. So I work a single crochet and then go in that front post and then do a single crochet on top of that. And then you're going to do 2 additional double crochets in that same middle space, a chain 2, 3 more double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets, chain 2, and then a final 3 double crochets. So in total, you should have 4 double crochet clusters at the end. And once you get to the end, you're going to just do a chain 1, and then you want to pull that string tight so then it closes that circle. And here we're just slip stitching it into that top of that first stacked double crochet or into the top of that chain 3. Now in that corner space, this is where you would do a chain 3 or your stacked double crochet and then place 2 more double crochets in that same space. And then next corner, you're going to do 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets, and you're going to repeat that all the way around until you get back to that very first corner that you made. So each corner in total should have 2 double crochet clusters separated by a chain 2. And once you get to that corner that we had just started at, only put 3 double crochets into chain 1 because that finishes the 2 clusters, and then we're going to slip stitch into the top of that double crochet or your chain 3. And then we are going to repeat that for round 3, so put 3 double crochets in that first corner, 3 double crochets in that next space, and then in the next corner it's going to be 2 clusters separated by the chain 2, and then just repeat that all the way around. So once you get to this final corner, you're going to place your 3 double crochets, and then I'm going to show you how I do the magic knot method. And I do this when I'm changing colors. So you're going to finish your 3rd double crochet and then snip off about an inch from it, and then you're going to frog 1 double crochet. Then you take your new yarn and you tie your old yarn around it in a little knot and make sure you pull tight. And then you're going to take the new yarn and tie that around the little bit of the previous yarn and pull that tight, and then you're going to pull both yarns in opposite directions, and that should slide the knots together. So here we're pulling, and how they slid together, you're just going to snip off these 2 little tails. And then if you snip them off correctly, when you pull these 2 yarns apart, they shouldn't come undone. So now you take your hook and you place it back where you were in that 2nd double crochet, and you'll finish that 3rd double crochet again, and you are left with the new yarn. So you chain 1 and you should be at the new yarn. And we are just completing this row the exact same as the previous. So place a double crochet cluster in the first corner, 1 double crochet cluster in each space, and then for each corner it'll be 2 double crochet clusters with 2 chains separating them. And I do just want to say, for my final round of granny squares, I usually do 2 double crochets in the very first corner, and then when I'm completing it, I will do the 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then 1 final double crochet, just to make it have more of a seamless look. So here I'm showing that now. So I will place my 3 double crochets, I do a chain 2, and then a final double crochet, and I'll slip stitch into that very first stacked double crochet. And again, I only do this on my very final round of a granny square. So you'll just leave yourself a tail and snip off your yarn, and then pull that through, and you have yourself a granny square. Next, I will be showing you how I join 2 granny squares together. So I've already done up until row 3, and then here I am just connecting the yarn with the magic knot. And so I use the join as you go method, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that, so this will have no sewing involved, or very little sewing. So you tie both yarns around each other, make sure to pull tight, pull them in opposite directions, and then snip off that little tail. And then once you pull them apart, they shouldn't undo. So you're going to place your hook back in that second double crochet, and then do your final double crochet in that corner, and then a chain 1, and you should be at the new yarn. So you're going to slip stitch into that first double crochet or chain 3, whatever you did. And then depending on what square you're trying to connect, I try to do it where I can do 1 row of granny stitch, like finish one side of the square, and then I start connecting, which that will make sense in a second. So I do my 2 double crochets in that corner, a double crochet cluster in this first space, double crochet cluster in the next space, and then in this first corner, we're only going to do 1 double crochet cluster and chain 2. So I have already connected one square to another, and I'm going to show you how I connect to make it a round piece, if that makes sense. So you're going to line up the sides you want to connect, and you're going to go in through the top of the previous granny square and slip stitch, and then complete the cluster in that corner, so 3 more double crochets. And then you're going to go through the top of the next space in the previous granny square, slip stitch, pull tight, and then 3 double crochets in that next space on your current granny square. And you repeat this all the way down. So you slip stitch in the next space through the top, pull it through, pull tight, and then your next 3 double crochets. And then slip stitch in the next space of the previous one, tight, and then for your corner you're going to do your 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then you're going to slip stitch in the corner of the previous granny square, and that connects that entire side. And then for the next side, I don't have anything to connect it to, so you're just going to continue as normal with your 3 double crochets in this corner, a double crochet cluster in each space, and then when I get to the final corner, I do 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then I will show you how I join the other side. Okay, so here I'm finishing up that 3rd double crochet, and I'm chaining 2, and then you want to flip your piece to where you're still working in the top, and then it's forming like a circle, if that makes sense. So you're going through the top of the other side of the granny square, and visually it makes more sense than me trying to describe it, but you're slip stitching, you're finishing that corner, so your 3 double crochets, and then you're going to slip stitch into the top of this granny square, and then you're repeating that just all the way down. So 3 double crochets, slip stitch, 3 double crochets, slip stitch, and then in your corner your 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then slip stitch in that corner. And so this is why I like to start with just 2 double crochets in that first corner, because after you slip stitch, you can do one final double crochet and then slip stitch it to the very first double crochet, and it just kind of makes it more of a seamless look. So here I'm doing my final double crochet and then slip stitching into the top of that first one, and then you can fasten off and you're left with like a full circle of granny squares. And this is going to be the top of the body of the stocking. So here it's continuous, that's going to be the inside. Now you're going to take those steps and make one more row right below it using 3 squares. Okay, so for here, I'm going to show you how you connect 2 pieces together, like if you have a side piece and then you're also connecting the top. Again, this will make more sense as you watch it. Me describing it, I'm not the best. But I make the first side as normal, and then I'm chaining 2 in here. We're going to be connecting the side. So this is the first one I have completed. We're connecting the side of it. So slip stitch, and then finish your corner, and then continue slip stitching and doing your clusters all the way through, like I showed you previously. And then once you get to this corner, you're doing your 3 double crochet and then chain 2. And then the difference with this is you're going to go in through the top of the first one that you're already connecting to. So here you put your hook in through the top, and then you're going to also put your hook in through the top of the next one, and then you're going to slip stitch through all of them. And then that just leaves it more seamless to connect. So like before, just continue on with your 3 double crochets and then slip stitch down the side. And then that's really the only change with this. But I like to do the slip stitch all in one so it leaves it tighter. And so we're at the final corner of this row, and I'm just slip stitching into the corner of the previous granny square, and then we continue down this side because there's nothing to connect it to. So you just follow as normal. And so here we do our 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and then the final double crochet, and then we slip stitch to that very first one, and then we're going to fasten off. And by now you should see the vision of how it's becoming like a tube, and then you're just going to put one more square right there, and then that will finish off the tube part, and then it gets a little complicated after, but not horrible. Okay, so once we have the tube part completed, I'm going to show you how to make the foot. So it's going to be kind of similar to the last ones that we did, where you're going to put this first square down, and then the second square you're going to have folded next to it, But instead of making it a tube like the last rows, you're going to have a triangle to the right. So here I'm showing you how that piece will go. So this will be like the top of the foot, and it will be a triangle folded, and then that will create that little curve. So you're going to be sewing this triangle together with the join as you go instead of connecting it as one big tube. So once you have the heel connected, for this one, you're going to connect only to those two sides. You are not going to connect right here, only to the top and then the side. So once those are together, you are left with a long tube, and then right here, you're going to have like a little flap open, and this is where we're going to put that triangle that I showed earlier. So this purple one right here is going to be the heel, so I'm going to take the tail that we fastened off with and just sew that together. I don't do anything fancy. I think it's called like a whip stitch, but I essentially just go in like the corresponding stitch across, and then I keep doing that until I feel like it's closed. And then I tie it off with a knot and then weave in the ends. Alright, so now I feel like it is closed and nothing's going to come out. So I tie it off with a knot like this, and then I push it to the other side so I can weave that in later because I like to procrastinate. And so this is what it looks like, just closed up. And so next we're going to be adding the triangle of the top of the foot. So that's what it looks like. You just connect to the two sides using the exact same method that we have been, the join as you go. And so for your very bottom row, you're just going to do a normal square on both sides and then a triangle right there. But now it should be forming a foot-like shape. So I have the first square done under the triangle. And I mean, you can see the vision. So we just do a square on the other side connecting, and then you're going to do your triangle shape. So you're going to connect this square to those three sides and leaving the one side open for the triangle. And so you can get an idea of what I mean. This one will be folded, and then we'll go right there, and that's how you get the foot shape. So here I am finishing up that bottom part, snipping off, and then we only got one square left. So don't mind that this is purple and not pink. I decided to change, but for this one, there's not going to be an open side, so you have to automatically start the join as you go. So we're going to slip stitch into that very first stacked double crochet or chain 3, and then we're going to do our 2 double crochets in this first corner. And then when you're slip stitching into the previous granny square, you have to line them up. So instead of going in that very first corner, you're going to go in the space right after that, because the corner is what we are going to be connecting in at the very end. So this will be the corresponding space that we're doing right now. So slip stitch and then continue as normal. So 3 double crochets in the next space, slip stitch, 3 double crochets, slip stitch, 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then that should line up with the next corner. So we're doing our 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then we're slip stitching in 2 corners this time. So this first corner, go in through the top, and then you're going to flip it around and go in through this other corner right here through the top, slip stitch through all of it. And sorry, it's a little hard to see. I'm trying to figure out my recording. But you're going to continue slip stitching in the clusters through this side. And then once it's folded, it will create that triangle shape. Alright, so we're coming up on our 3 double crochets with the chain 2, and then you're going to be going in 2 corners again. So go in through the top of this one, and then the top of the next one, and slip stitch, and then continue on like normal. So 3 double crochets, slip stitch, and then all the way down. And then same thing, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then you're going to be slip stitching through 2 corners. So the one that you're currently doing, and then the next side. Go in through the top of both, slip stitch through everything, and then you're gonna do the final side just as normal. So you're gonna slip stitch through that final side, and then I will meet you at the very last corner. Okay, so here we're at the last corner, so you're gonna do your 3 double crochets and your chain 2, and then you're going to slip stitch into the current one that you're slip stitching in, and then the very first one that we had started at. And then you're going to do your final double crochet to complete the 3 that we started at, and then you're going to fasten off. So there we are slip stitching, and then we're just doing 1 more double crochet in this corner, and then we're slip stitching to the top of that very first one. And so now we have a foot, or a stocking I should say. But here I'm just trying to pull that final tail into the inside just so it looks better, and then I will weave all of those in a bit. But next I'm going to show you how to do the ribbing at the very top to have like a little cuff. So here is where we're going to put the ribbing, and I like to use a size up hook just so it doesn't tighten it. So I have been using a 4.5, here I'm using a 5.5, and I'm making my slip knot, and then I'm connecting it on the same side as the heel. So you want it to be in the very back. Like where it bends naturally, that's where I want to put it. You don't have to, but it makes it easier to add the loop at the end. But I'm just single crocheting all the way around. And then once you get to corners of the granny square, I do 1 in the corner hole, and then I do a decrease stitch to just kind of pull them together, and then continue on 1 in every stitch. But you can single crochet on top however you choose. I just like to decrease the corners to pull them more together. And you're just going to do this all the way around until you get back to where you started. And then once you reach back to where you started, you're just going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet that you made. And then depending on how long you want the ribbing, I did 7 chains, which will be 6 stitches, and remember it's going to fold over. And then I half double crochet in the back loop of the second chain from the hook, and then I half double crochet all the way down. So there should be 6 stitches total of half double crochet. And sometimes they're hard to see, but you should be able to figure it out. I just like to do the back loops though because it makes it cleaner when you're connecting. So once you get all 6 half double crochets done, you're going to slip stitch. So here I am just counting because I forgot one. But you're going to slip stitch in the first stitch next to where you started chaining, slip stitch in the next one, and then slip stitch in the third one. And then you're going to kind of turn your work, and you're going to skip those 3 slip stitches, and then in the back loop of the original 6, you're going to half double crochet all the way down. So the back loop, half double crochet all the way till the end. And then you are going to chain 1, turn your work, and then continue that all the way around. So you're going to do 3 slip stitches every time you reach back to the stocking. So here we're chaining 1, and we're turning, and then still in the back loop, we're half double crocheting all the way around, or all the way down. And then once you get your 6, you need to slip stitch 3 stitches and then turn your work. And it's easy to skip a stitch, so just constantly kind of count 6 to make sure that you have all 6 stitches, or else it'll start looking a little wonky. But here we have our 3 slip stitches, we're turning, and then back loop of the original 6 half double crochets. And like I said, just do that all the way around until you reach where you started. So here I am almost at the beginning, but I'm going to insert my hook, and then I'm going to do my 3 slip stitches. And then personally, I like to do a final row of the half double crochets, even if I am perfectly back to the start, just so it doesn't look kind of sparse, if that makes sense. So here I'm just doing my final 6 half double crochets, and then I'm going to chain 1, and we're gonna flip our work so that we're working on the inside of it, like the wrong side, and we're going to slip stitch both sides together. So we're chaining 1, and then here how I'm folding it to where I'm working on the inside. It's a little tricky, but you'll get it. And then you're gonna take the loops that are closest together. So I'm taking the starting chain, that loop, and then the corresponding chain or stitch that I was working in, and we're slip stitching. And we're doing that for all 6 of those. So just 1 loop for each side, and then we're slip stitching. Which this part isn't the biggest of deals because you won't really be able to tell if you take more than 1 loop. I just think it looks a little cleaner. But once you have all 6 slip stitched together, do not fasten off. Sorry, I guess this one was a little tricky for me, but I got the hook in, and then we're slip stitching. And then what I'm doing here is I'm gonna chain, I think I chain like 10 or something. This doesn't really matter. It's just gonna be the size of the loop for your stocking. Here is where we have the cuff. It can be longer if you made it more chains. This is just mine with 6. And so you put your hook in the loop that you have still, because we did not fasten off. And then I make my 10 or so chains, and then I just slip stitch right back at the base of where those chains came out of. So here we are, we're slip stitching, and then now we're fastening off. So once you pull that through, you have a finished stocking. And then that's the little loop that it can hook onto, or you don't have to add it if you have a different way of hanging them. But now you just have to weave everything in and you are all complete. I do hope that my video recording skills get better, but thank you for watching and happy holidays!